Welcome to Perspective in Business, where we explore the topics related to sustainability, ESG, and corporate world. I'm your host, Juan Carlos Giraldo, and today we turn to sustainability in sports. Their economic power is immense, but also their environmental impact. Joining me as a guest, Vitas Carosella, a leading voice on sports and also in sustainability. Vitas, thank you for being here. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thank you for having me. How are you today?
I am doing well. I'm so excited because I like sports and especially soccer that we will discuss in few minutes. Um, Vitas, I would like to start the conversation by asking you. Let's split this conversation in two parts. One, sustainability as a topic in the sports, and afterwards we will go into dig a little bit and let's see in soccer because the next year is going to be the World Cup here in Mexico, Canada, and the United States. Let's begin. How can sports organizations balance the environmental impact of large scale events such as the World Cup with the economy and cultural benefits? And what role do athletes and fans play in driving sustainability?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's a great place to start. I think obviously when talking about sports, there is a huge cultural and economic benefit to anybody who's participating, who's watching, partaking in any way. I think when you're talking about large scale events like the World Cup, like the Olympics, the first thing to do is to recognize that there will be an environmental
Mhm.
impact, right? You're hosting an event, there will be some form of footprint,
Exactly.
right? And then from there, the people that are planning these events should factor that in and plan accordingly. And when I say plan accordingly, what do I mean exactly? I mean, you know, devise schedules that limit the amount of travel that players, fans, staff need to do, right? Devise ways to limit emissions, find ways to reuse certain resources, for instance, reusable water stations, find ways to use renewable energy as opposed to using, dirty fossil fuels that will increase your emissions, use recycling schemes, find ways to limit waste throughout your event, and and this is a key part, talk to suppliers, right? There's no sporting event that takes place, be it the World Cup, be it just a regular league match, right? Without many different suppliers within the supply chain having to take part, right? Somebody is bringing those bottled waters to the stadium. Somebody is delivering the kit to the stadium. Somebody has manufactured the 20 different soccer balls that are used in a specific game, right? So anybody who's organizing an event needs to not I don't say have control because maybe that's too much, but at least speak to the different people in the supply chain to make sure that everything is up to the standard that they're looking for, right? So that's a very overarching way to look at how sports can manage that environmental impact with the benefits for culture and the economy. And then looking at that a little bit more, you know, every event will take place in a different location, right? So if we're going to talk about the World Cup or the Olympics, take the Olympics. Paris is not the same as Milan, where the Winter Olympics are going to be, which is not the same as LA, where the next Summer Olympics are going to be. So you have to make decisions that are best for that local environment and those communities, right? The, in LA, for example, water scarcity is already an issue. Wildfires are issues. Extreme heat is an issue. Those are things that you need to look at and factor in and maybe find a way to use the tournament to devise strategies and projects that can have a lasting effect beyond the tournament, right? So basically put in place plans that can help limit climate change and reduce environmental impact in the long term, right? And so you have to speak to the local community members, you have to get involved with the municipality, you have to speak to local businesses, et cetera, et cetera.
It's fascinating because involve many things. Actually, preparing I was preparing for this conversation, and the host, I mean the cities, had to promote this kind of initiative. Like for example, tobacco spots, ventilation, air quality in the stadiums. I didn't know, for example, in average, 5.4 million of caps annually in average is used in just one in average in one stadium. It's insane. But for these particular situations, Vitas, what kind of innovation or strategies using we can do? What are your thoughts?
I think there's some basic low-hanging fruit that could just be the standard for any country or host city or organization that wants to host a major sporting event. So those that low-hanging fruit that I'm referring to is something like LEED certification for your energy systems in your stadium. ISO 14001 as a framework for environmental management that you have set in place that guides you. ISO 20121, that's for event management sustainability. Efficient transport systems should be in place. Water recycling systems, if we're talking about,
Exactly.
soccer
Exactly.
specifically or any grass pitch sport, you know, timed water usage so that your sprinklers are not going off all the time and you're wasting water. Solar panels on stadiums. These are all things that I think we're at a point in our sustainability arc, and we are on a path with climate change where
Realities.
these
Yeah.
have to be the standard, right? Every stadium, every organization should be implementing these things to the best of their abilities. I understand there are different levels of capital and realities that people can invest, but those should be the basics. Then if we're talking about more specific innovations, technologies, strategies, campaigns, um, there's actually a lot that can be done and is being done. I think when you get kind of delve into this a little bit deeper, you'll see that there's actually a lot more going on than might meet the eye at the beginning, because a lot of people just think sports is sports and they don't think about how sustainability overlaps with that. So yeah, so for example, from a player perspective, because they are the marquee product, right? They're the people that we all go to see, and everybody wants to see Messi play or Mbappe play. Players can and some do help build awareness and educate about these topics, right? They have the biggest platform in the world. They are the stars. They are the role model, and they can demonstrate if a cause is important to them, they can talk about it, right? We've seen it time after time, be it NBA players talking about black culture and social movements and racial justice, um, be it women in sports talking about equal pay and things like that. There are players who are beginning to talk about climate change and sustainability. And so, for example, William Troost-Ekong is the captain of the Nigerian national team. He's a center defender. He plays in the Gulf right now. He works with a brand called Sokito, and they are a
Oh,
sustainable soccer
amazing.
boot brand. So his boots that he wears in every game are sustainably built. He knows the entire supply chain. They know where they get their materials from. They're built with recycled water bottles and cloths and coffee filters and things like that. And it's a perfect way to show that you care about something with with the equipment that you're using on the field, right? Like everybody knows the only way to play soccer professionally is with boots on, right? If you don't have your cleats, you're not going to play in the game. So it's a perfect way to show your branding, right? Hector Bellerin, who's a famous player who's played for Arsenal, Barcelona, now he's at Real Betis. He went vegan many years ago. He talks about being vegan. He has a eco-friendly clothing line. He talks about how he's embedded that into his lifestyle. And to be honest, I think over the past 5, 6 seasons, he's probably gotten more interviews and media around what he does off the field than his play on the field. So it goes to show that if you make it part of your brand, you can influence people, right? And and so just on the player side of things, education, awareness, and honestly, promoting a cause and making it trendy, right? Like making it cool. Because when things are cool, people want to be a part of them. Um, and and so I think there's an MIT study that was done a few years back that showed that athletes actually are the most trusted athletes and entertainers are some of the most trusted people in society, right? Like many percentage points more than scientists or politicians or other researchers. And so athletes should use this to benefit humanity, and this is one of the ways they can do that.
Exactly. They are. I think they are eh, a crucial players. If they value the word again, crucial play an important role. Can you imagine a tweet or a post on Instagram, please recycling your cup after the game, and Mbappe or CR7 say that? Think about it. The Gen Z growing with these people and could be an enormous impact. Enormous.
It could be enormous. I mean, you just think about at the last World Cup in Qatar, Cristiano Ronaldo had there was a Coca-Cola bottle in front of him. I believe it was the World Cup, maybe it was the qualifiers, and he moved it, right? He said, and he muttered something like, "I don't drink that, I drink water." And instantly, millions of people were, "Oh, I should just drink water. I should be like Ronaldo." And so that's the power of sports, though, right? Just like that, you can do something and propel a movement. From a fan perspective, I think it's a little more difficult because fans don't have the same platform that players do. Um, and fans are from all over the world. And so they think differently about different topics. I'm not under the illusion that fans all think alike. But I would say fans have the power in numbers to demand the change that they want to see, right? So I think there's in the US, if we keep it to where we are right now, I think there was a survey that showed roughly 70% of Americans want climate action, right? So if you translate that to the average fan who goes to a soccer match, the likelihood is that at least two two of every three wants some sort of climate action, right? And so they could make their voices known. They could have events, they could lead events, they could engage with the club that they support or the national teams that they support, and they could say, "Hey, look, we noticed you traveled this way to this game. Couldn't you consider traveling a better way?" Or, "Hey, we come to all your games every time and we love the stadium and we love the atmosphere, but everything is plastic, like plastic cups, plastic this. Is there a better way to do this? Could we bring our own water bottles and we refill?" There's a lot of small things that fans can demand or ask for, engage, and that can create a ripple effect down the line so that, the hosts of the events, the suppliers create a change in response to that, right? Like economic power is also a big thing. If fans if fans don't want to purchase something, then markets will respond to that.
I would like to back a little bit about the technology thing. I was doing my research, and for example, probably you know more than me, Mercedes-Benz Stadium is runs in 100% renewables with 90% waste diversion. And also, for example, the Levi's Stadium also work in rainwater recycling to conserve resources. Briefly, what are your thoughts before going to the soccer?
Well, first of all, I think those are fantastic initiatives, and like I said, kind of at the beginning of this question, I think that those projects should become the norm across all the big stadiums, all across North America, all across the world. I think Mercedes-Benz Arena in Atlanta is one of the best and most sustainably run stadiums in the country. It consistently scores incredibly high. And I think that, you know, we're all in this fight together. So that kind of technology, that kind of innovation could be shared across ownership groups, across stadiums, across cities, countries. Because if we don't work together, we're not going to rise up. We're not going to solve these issues basically. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, as I said at the beginning, solar panels or renewables to power your stadium, to power, the ovens that cook the food that fans buy, to power the suites where the more fortunate fans are allowed to sit.
Composting,
Um,
plenty of things.
yeah, composting, waste diversion, and a lot of this also has to do with, not just the stadium itself or not just the host city itself, but the partners that these teams and organizations work together with, right? And so it's a it's a community effort rather than just this team does this thing, right? And and so, you have to look at the partners that people are working with. I think there are plenty of technological solutions, innovative campaigns. We just need to start implementing them better and across the board. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with this. Sports Positive is a an organization in the UK. They kind of categorize the top European leagues, soccer leagues, in terms of most sustainable club to least sustainable. They kind of go through them annually and look at what they're doing. They also do annual awards for
Who
organizations
is leading? Who are leading in
that
the?
that are leading the way. Yeah.
Wow, that's
And
amazing.
so they just took place. They take place every October, and they give out awards for things like the best sustainability campaign, the best sustainability report. So they're, actively rewarding organizations that actually report on what they're doing, because that's one of the main things. We don't have clear sustainability reporting criteria and guidelines still across the board.
I
So
see.
certain organizations report in one way, some report in another. They give out these awards for community initiatives, biodiversity projects, etc. And so I'm bringing this up just to show that there's a lot happening out there. There are a lot of organizations, big and small, working to find solutions to these problems, and we need to find a way within the sports ecosystem to piece it all together and make sure that everybody is working on these things together.
Properly.
Yes, properly.
Speaking about organizations, and now just going to the second part of the conversation, let's talk about the FIFA. Uy, uy, uy. The FIFA, you know, knowing since I was kid, by the way, with Avalanche. I remember Avalanche was the president. So something that's very important and is, a lot of credit that the FIFA is taking social responsibilities very serious, which is great. What are your thoughts about the FIFA? Because next year we will have the World Cup 2026. What are your thoughts? 2022 Qatar, one of the issues, I would say, the human rights. What are your thoughts about FIFA's sustainability commitments?
This is a really great question because it is difficult to unpack. FIFA has made sustainability commitments. They are part of the UNFCCC Sport for Climate Action Network, which means that they've committed to reducing their emissions by 50% by 2030 and reaching net zero by 2040, right? On the surface, that looks incredible, right? They're working towards these goals and they're trying to reduce their emissions and their overall environmental footprint. The problem is that they have committed to certain things in writing, and then their actions demonstrate something else.
And the reality is different.
Yeah, exactly. So, what do I think of this? I mean, the reality is that I actually just looked back as I was preparing for this. FIFA's, I looked back at their emissions reports from the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 World Cup, every single emissions report is higher than the previous one. I'm not saying that everything is bad, but that's trending in the wrong direction, right? If your emissions continue to go up.
Yeah, because sorry for interrupting, because I think involve a lot of traveling and the emissions of is enormous.
If we look at the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, one of the best things about it was that such a small country that actually travel within the country wasn't a big deal, right? And they built metro systems and other public transit to move people around. And so travel within the country wasn't a problem. The problem with the World Cup in Qatar was that there was so much stadium construction that that's where most of the emissions came, right? Pouring all that concrete and building all these facilities so that
I see.
teams could come and play. So the emissions really spiked because of that there. Also, there were many human rights issues and we had to move it because of temperatures, etc. For this World Cup, we have to flip it on its head, right? So all the stadiums are built. We have plenty of high quality stadiums in the US and Mexico and Canada. Problem is they're all over the place, right?
Yes, it's
We
true.
we're about to see the biggest World Cup ever in terms of fear, territory, and travel. And on top of that, FIFA took the decision to expand the World Cup from 32 to 48 teams. So what does that mean? It means doubling the amount of games. The traditional 32 team World Cup was about 63, 64 games. And this is going to be around 105, I believe. So you're doubling the games, which means you're doubling the amount of travel, you're expanding the pool, which means fans from more countries will come, which, of course, is a good thing in some ways because culturally and economically, people are going to benefit. I am one of those people who has been blessed to be able to travel across the world. And, it's one of the things that I would tell everybody to do from a personal perspective. It's one of the most enriching personal experiences you can have. At the same time, we know that the modes in which we travel are not beneficial for our planet. And so what I would say is, we're going to have this massive tournament, the biggest one ever. What I would say is we need to put systems in place that make it easy for fans to make the sustainable choice, right? So what do I mean by that? I mean, if you're a fan, let's say you're coming from Ecuador. Ecuador has qualified for the World Cup, right? You're coming to the US, you want to see few games. Let's say you want to see 2 or 3 games. You weren't lucky enough to get tickets in the same city for all 3 of your games. So you're going to have to travel to different cities, right? You're going to have to travel by airplane almost certainly because distances are so big and you're only here for so much time. Travel between cities is going to be difficult and it's going to be carbon intensive because of the mode of travel. In the cities that you're in, once you're there, host cities, municipalities, local legislation, federal, state, needs to make it so that it's easy for fans to get around sustainably. So, are is there biking infrastructure? Is there public transit? Is there, are there other modes of transportation that are beneficial? Sustainable hotels, sustainable food. I mean, are the stadiums going to serve vegan or low carbon food products? Are they going to allow you to refill your water bottle as opposed to making you purchase a new water bottle every time? These are things that you need to make it easy for the fan because the fan is already putting in so much effort to come to the tournament already, right? They just want to enjoy themselves. They don't want to be thinking, okay, but I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't take an Uber because that's more inefficient than if I took the metro. Like those are things that fans don't want to be thinking about. When I look at this World Cup, according to FIFA, its tournament sustainability strategy says that it's going to help contribute positively to 12 of the 17 sustainable development goals, including clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption, and climate action. And the reality that I see on the ground is I'm not sure how they plan to accomplish all of that because there's not enough strategies and projects in place. And we're, you know, 8, 9 months away. And so I have a lot of concerns about how this World Cup is going to be carried out from an environmental perspective. And I fully expect that the carbon emissions from this World Cup will be even higher than Qatar. And that's a sad reality.
Before wrapping up, Vitas, just you mentioned Qatar. Qatar is Arabic country, which is similar to Saudi Arabia, that it will host the World Cup in 2034. What do you think about that briefly?
It involves a lot of things. First of all, I think supposedly when FIFA selects a host nation, they do due diligence reports, and one of the things they factor in is the environmental cost or impact of hosting a tournament in a specific country. I don't see how, given Saudi Arabia's current infrastructure levels, its location in the globe, and its primary product, which is oil, how how Saudi Arabia could have been chosen on an or how it could have passed FIFA's environmental standards and regulations. I have a problem with how the country was selected. And this is just looking at it environmentally. I'm not even factoring in potential human rights issues, um, the geopolitical location, the authoritarian regime that is ruling the country. You know, there's multiple factors. But if we're just looking at it from an environmental perspective, you've selected a nation that makes almost all of its money based off of oil production. It has routinely said that it is investing in renewable resources, and yet its primary um, corporations, if you take Aramco, which is a FIFA sponsor, as a primary example, Aramco, I think it was last year at a conference in Houston, the head of Aramco said, you know, we need to basically get rid of this silly idea that we can transition away from fossil fuels. I'm paraphrasing, but is that's essentially what he said. You have an organization that is actively essentially stalling climate progress by continuing to produce the one product that we absolutely scientifically know causes climate change. And so what can we do about this? I mean, the 2034 World Cup is still far away, so there might be, you know, fans and, you know, organizations, non-government organizations that would say, well, we should lobby to remove the World Cup from Saudi Arabia. I don't think that that's a realistic option. I don't think that even tons and tons of pressure on FIFA would get us to see that achieved. Like, I just don't think that they're going to remove the World Cup from Saudi Arabia. They have too much money invested in it. So, what can we do? Fans, players, staff, coaches, everybody who thinks that climate is a real issue and needs to be solved should be putting pressure on FIFA to put pressure. They should put pressure on FIFA to put pressure on sponsors, on stakeholders, on the organizers to at least meet specific environmental regulations and standards in the lead up to the World Cup. Okay, you're going to build these new stadiums. These are the environmental standards they must have. They must have. You want to be a sponsor of the World Cup. These are the environmental standards you must meet, right? And so on, all the way down the supply chain. Because otherwise, frankly, from an environmental perspective, it will not be a successful World Cup. And I mean, even doing all of that, I have my doubts if it will be an environmentally successful World Cup because of where it is, because of who's hosting it. But at least these things, like these organizations, need to be held to account, right? I think on FIFA's website, it says FIFA World Cup is the most effective international marketing platform, reaching millions of people in over 200 countries throughout the world. With that in mind, my question would be okay, if this is the most effective international marketing platform, what are you choosing to market by hosting it in Saudi Arabia?
Pitas, is there anything that you would like to add, and also where people can contact you, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so the main thing that I would like to add is just that sports as an industry is incredibly powerful, as we just mentioned, right? It's an amazing way to get a message across. It brings together so many millions, if not billions, of people. There's so many people that live this day to day as a passion, as the thing they love most. We can use it as a force for good, right? And I think it should be used to give people hope and agency in this fight against climate change, right? And in many other social and political battles, but if we're talking just about the environment, we should give fans hope and we should provide them ways in which they can actively contribute to reduce the economic stress that we're putting on the world. The other thing I would say is look, sports are not going to do it on their own, and sports as an industry are worth, roughly $400 billion trending upwards, but the emissions that they actually have are comparatively low to other industries. What sports can do is push industry in the right direction. We see it we see it through technological innovation in sports like F1 and Formula E. We see it in the power of influence in sports like soccer. It's so powerful and we need to use it as a force for good. And the other thing I would say is to people that are skeptic who maybe don't think that ESG or climate change should be front of mind, that we should be prioritizing economic advancement or other issues. What I would say is this is an issue. Climate change and biodiversity are issues that have a ripple throughout every other aspect of life, right? Like if you find technological solutions that help climate action, you will naturally create new markets, new jobs, lift people out of poverty, find economic solutions. You'll bring a better balance to the natural world, which, as we know, would help decrease the amount of diseases and foodborne illnesses that there are, et cetera, et cetera. It goes down the line. If you're invested in this, you can make money off of being more sustainable. If you do this out of personal and moral ambition, great. Share it with your friends, share it with your family, talk about it and push for more action, right? Like as a fan of sports, you have a voice and you should use it. That would be my final message. And yeah, I mean people can find me on I'm a Forbes contributor. I freelance for other outlets including Sports Business Journal. You can find me on LinkedIn, you can follow me on Twitter or Blue Sky, although mostly I just follow other people on there. So I'm always available if people want to reach out and contact me and tell me their story, and I'm always open for conversation.
Thank you so much, Vitas. Vitas, I would like to say thank you for your time. Talking about sports, like my father always said, talking about sport and politics is endless. So, but I really enjoy this conversation, and thank you so much for your time.
It was a pleasure being here. I hope we can talk again soon. And before I leave, I have to know, Juan Carlos, we talked about soccer for about 40 minutes, and I don't know what team you support. So you have to tell me.
Oh, I have to tell you. Well, in Peru,
Okay.
Universitario de Deportes, in internationally, I would say like
Okay.
AC Milan, el Barcelona,
Okay.
Figo, the Koeman, the
Oh wow.
Stoico, the
Okay.
Ladru. This is were
The dream
my favorite
team.
teams. But yes, I say I am a big fan of soccer.
Okay. It's been an absolute pleasure, Juan Carlos. Hopefully we can do it again soon.
Oh, certainly we will be next year. Don't worry. Thank you so much. I am Juan Carlos Giraldo from Boston, United States. Thank you so much, everyone.